Darina,
Julia,
Michael, Tristan,
Jessica,
Adam, Lockie,
Joseph, Ross,
Paula,
Saroja,
Solma,
Paul,
Josh,
Peter.
Maureen, yes.
David.
David, Reed and Heyman.
Yeah.
And off to Bob.
Right, good morning everyone. Well, the usual. Can't teach you anything here. Can't tell you anything. All we do is point toward and ask you to look to where we're pointing to see for yourself. Because no matter what somebody's told you or what you might believe or understood, nobody can tell you or teach you anything. Because what we point to, they call in the great traditions, is non-duality, Advaita. And non-duality meaning one without a second, not two. So it's only that one who can teach you anything or who can tell you anything. So that's what we base it all on, Advaita, non-duality, which they describe as Sat Chit Ananda Nama Rupa. They are the five factors. Sat is existence, Chit is consciousness, Ananda is loving to be, and the Nama Rupa, name and form, they tell you, is Maya, illusion. Name and form meaning the body-mind is illusory. It only appears because they call it a phenomenal manifestation. And the definition of phenomena is that which appears to be. So if what they're pointing to is true, it needs to be recognised. And it's quite simple. Anybody who is not existing right now, existence consciousness, anyone who is not unconscious, you're all unconscious, so you must be conscious. Anyone who's happy to be, or you're not, there's no corpses sitting around here, you're all being. And that's another way they put it, being, knowing, and loving to be. And being is not becoming, because becoming implies a future time. And when you investigate that concept, time, you'll see all that is a mental concept too. Because is there a past if you don't think about it? You'll say, I was in the past. I'll say to you, well, try and live yesterday. Try and live last week. And you realise you can't go back and live a moment ago even. But you can recall it. And the only reality you're giving is what you're giving it right now. You can't tell me what you said a moment ago now unless you bring it up again and recall it. And only why you can recall it is appearing there. And it's recalled in the present. And they call it presence awareness. Not a past awareness or a future awareness, but a present awareness. Anybody who is unaware right now? No. If you're not unaware, you must be aware. So you are already that. And isn't that the great mantra, I am that? That is that, the trees that, the flowers that. Innately you know that. Because you say, that's the chair, that's the carpet, that's the space, that's the tree. Everything is that, which we put different labels on words, and discriminate it with the word. Now, how many words were you born with? You realise you weren't born with any words at all. And you didn't pick up any words till you're about 2.5. People say, I was born. And some people try to tell you they can remember your birth. But how could you remember your birth if you had no words? And you didn't learn any words till you're about 2.5, somewhere around that age when the capacity of reasoning develops in you. That capacity of reasoning is a natural functioning. It, as I say, didn't come upon you till you're a couple of years old. So, you say, I was born, and you learn words from your parents when that capacity of reasoning starts. Parents tell you your little Johnny or your little Jane or Billy, whatever your name might be. And somebody asks you who you are, you'll say, I am Billy or I am Jane. But you're putting the wrong identity on yourself, the personal. And the person is not reality. Where does the word person come from? It comes from the ancient Latin persona, the mask. Pointing out we've got this conceptual image, a mask of concepts, which we hide our true nature. There's only one essence, one being, one reality. And you are that already. So the search itself becomes the problem. The search implies there's something you haven't got that you will get at some future time. And investigate time, as I said before, and you see all the time is a mental concept. And every word you've ever spoken or ever likely to speak has been picked up along the way. And you didn't learn any words till the capacity of reasoning developed in you. Your parents started to tell you little Billy or little Johnny, and you learnt words from there on. But you see, the word's not the thing. Take the word water, try and drink it if you can. Take the word fire, cook with it, heat yourself with it, burn yourself with it. You can't. So what's this word I or me that we've taken ourselves to be this person, persona? No. You realise it's just another label, just another word. And tells you in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word. That's when it all began, according to that. The Word was with God, the Word was God. That's all that God is, another label, a word. All things were made by Him, by the Word. Now look around this room and see, is there anything out there you're not putting a label on or putting a word on? Everything that's there, we've got a label or a word for. And there was nothing made that was made without the Word. So you see that all this manifestation, which they say is Maya, they call it a phenomenal manifestation, and the definition of phenomena is that which appears to be. It's all appearing to be real. But it is real in its essence, not as it appears. So these body minds we take to be real are that essence, or life essence. Where does it all appear in? And you realise that everything appears in space. Now, we are in space in this room. Now have a look at space. Can you grasp space? You can't. Does space have any beginning? It doesn't. Does it have any centre? No, it hasn't got any centre. And they call it space-like awareness, awareness like space. So if you can't find a centre to it, can't find a circumference to it, it's just seemingly appearing. It is no thing. And can you postulate or think of anything at all that could be outside of space? What would it be in? And you realise you can't think of anything or imagine anything. You talk about other worlds or other galaxies and it's like that. What would they be in? They've still got to be in space. But space is no thing. You and I and every other thing in this manifestation are things. Now space is no thing. Can something come from no thing? And you don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar to work that out. something cannot come from no thing. So all this manifestation, though it's appearing, shaping, patterning, shaping and forming, appearing as things, is really no thing. It's like a dream. You go to sleep at night and a dream will start, maybe. In that dream, you can be in the hills, on the ocean, in a shopping mall, anywhere at all, doing all sorts of activities. And it's constantly changing, and other people are appearing in it. When you wake up in the morning, it all disappears. And you realise your body hadn't moved off the bed, no words had come out of your mouth. But what you don't realise, you wake up to this living dream, this waking dream. Because when you wake up in the morning, this dream carries on from where it left off the night before. And now in the dream at night, the mountains, the hills and everything had disappeared. They're still there in this waking dream. And it carries on from there and changes. And it's constantly transient, ever changing. Like the ocean is ever changing, but never changing. Waves and ripples and things will appear on it, but it's still only and ever the ocean. So it's the same with this pattern, shape and form. It's ever changing, but never changing. Transient. You mightn't realise that, but that body that you're in right now, there are thousands of cells dying at it right in this moment, not one or two, but thousands of them, and being replaced. And each cell's being replaced like a liver cell won't replace a skin cell. Skin cell won't replace a heart cell or a brain cell. Each cell knows what to do. It's suffused with that life essence or intelligence energy, knowing what to do. So this body is constantly changing. Now, when did you begin? You'll say, I began at birth. But you can't remember your birth because you had no words. And you couldn't know anything about your birth till you were about 2, 2.5, somewhere that age, when you learnt words. And you took on words and taken the words to be real from then on. Now, we've taken on this body, mind, entity, and believe it to be real, but are you the body? Well, we'll go back and carry on from where we left. Where did you begin? We'll go back as far as your father and your mother. That life animating intelligence into that life essence that pattern, shaped and formed your father. In that pattern, through the food he's eaten and the air he's breathing, enabled in that pattern a little microscopic particle called a sperm to form. That sperm was suffused with intelligence energy. It knew what to do. And the same in that pattern you call your mother, that animating life essence, that intelligence in your mother, enabled in that pattern through the food she's eaten, another microscopic particle called an egg or an ovum to form. That egg was suffused with intelligence. It knew what to do. It attached itself to the wall of the uterus. And the sperm, knowing what to do, swam to the ovum. It knew what to do. When those two came together and merged, the intelligence energy in both doubled that cell, doubled it again, formed the little embryo, the little fetus, which is what you are today. What were you doing about it then? And what are you doing about it now? You realise that life energy itself is doing it all. And the Nisargadatta tells us there is only life. There is nobody who lives on life. Life lives on life, and from out of life, more life comes. So you see the life came out of your parents, and from out of their parents, and from the seed, and from the birds, the bees, the eggs, and everything like that, the life is continually coming from life. And it's really only the one life, the one essence, the one intelligence energy. I call it intelligence energy. I don't use the term God because you can get confused with that term. There are many different traditions and each one's got a different concept or idea of what they believe this God is. But I call it intelligence energy. Intelligence is knowing. And there's nobody in this room who is not knowing right now. And that knowing, the ing on it, is an activity. It's something that's happening right now. And any activity is a movement of energy. Therefore I get the word intelligence energy. The activity of knowing. Anybody who's not knowing right now, not being, not loving to be, that's another way to put the Satchat in hand, of being, knowing, loving to be. Or awareness of being is the loving to be, or the bliss of being. So you are already that. And have always been and can only and ever be that. And that vibrates, patterns, expresses in all these different patterns, shapes and forms, which are seemingly real, seemingly solid and substantial. But it is all that life essence. And you are the life. And Nisargadatta tells you, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. That's what Christ told you. People thought he was talking about himself. He wasn't. He was talking about that sense of presence, the knowing that you are. We express it through the mind as the thought I am. That I am is not it. I believe it is. It's the sense of presence that translates as the thought. And that's the problem. When somebody asks you who you are, you'll say, I am so-and-so. Not realising what we're pointing to is the one essence that's patterning, shaping, forming, expressing, experiences as everything. It is the absolute, or as they call it in Buddhism, the great perfection. And they give it in one sentence in the Buddha. The great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. There is nobody who is unaware in this room right now. And you put all these concepts or thoughts or ideas on it and take them to be real. But it's non-conceptual awareness. And the absolute. What can you add to absolute? Nothing. What can you take away from absolute? Nothing. So you are, and only and ever, the absolute. You're not the person. The person comes from the word persona, the mask. It's a belief in a separate entity. And if you recognise you are the absolute, who can ever be superior to you if it's absolute? Who can ever be inferior to you? And what would you want from anybody else? So you see where all our concepts and ideas and wanting this and needing that and believing we have to have this comes about from that belief in separation. They've got, he's superior to me, or he's got more than I have and I need to take this from him or get it. This is where all our wars, fears and concepts and ideas and fights and arguments come about from. That belief that we are these individuals, these persons, these separate entities that need to become. Becoming implies a future time. Being. Being can never become something. Because when you look at the concept of time, you'll see that time itself is a mental concept. If you ask yourself, is there a past if I don't think about it? Have a look at that and try and tell me there's a past there without a thought. Is there a future without a thought? So you realise that past and future are time, they're concepts, they're thoughts. You'll say, I was in the past. I'll say, try and live yesterday. And you realise you can't go back and live yesterday You can't even go back and live a moment ago. You can recall it. But if you're not remembering it, you can't even recall it. It's gone for good. And it's only what you can recall and believe it is so that makes up the so-called past. What about the future? Well, you can anticipate and imagine the future, but you can't live a moment in the future. What you're going to do when you leave here, you anticipate and imagine it right now. You're not actually doing it. And it won't be till it is the future when it's doing it. So the past is memory, something that's dead. The future is anticipation and imagination. And the actuality is this omnipresence, the total presence, the omnipotence, the total power, the omniscience, the total intelligence. People call that God. And you can call it God if you like. As I say, I don't use that term because it's just labels. Just words. And there's no word that is the real. Take the word water, try and drink the word. You can't. Take the word fire, try and burn yourself with it. You cook with it, you can't. So what's this word I or me? Look at it, investigate it, and you'll see maybe it's not what I am after all. And without the word, where does it leave you? Anyone left this present right now? Anyone who is not unaware right now? Or not unconscious? No, you'll say, I'm conscious. I'm not unaware, so I must be awareness. So you already are that. But we take the conceptual image that we believe ourselves to be, get lost in that, and see what we do when we put that concepts onto ourselves. We make the story up. I'm Bob the Australian, the good fella, or I'm unhappy, or I'm sad, I'm fearful, I'm anxious, I'm depressed. All my psychological suffering is what is added on to this conceptual presence awareness, a conceptual image, which I believe to be so. And you've loaded yourself down with these concepts, words, and got this image. Instead of staying with the pure awareness, leaving it as it is, just in this presence, see how it unfolds and functions. We carry around the concepts, the story, the word, and beat ourselves up with the word. So that's what needs to happen. Recognise we picked up these words along the way. We believe in it. It's only me that can be unhappy when I believe it in me. Only me that can be fearful. Only me that can be depressed, anxious, guilty, shameful, jealous, envy. That's all the psychological problems, the words we put on, all psychological problems. Me is the cause. The believed in me is the cause of all these fear, anxiety, depression, all these psychological problems. They are the effects of the cause. Cause and effect. Isn't that what we call karma? Cause and effect. What happens if you ask yourself, if I am the cause, it's me that causing all the things, because it's only me that can be unhappy, only me that can be jealous, only me that can be empty. If I'm the cause, me is the cause, can there be an effect if I'm not relating to the cause? Well, if you're not relating it to the cause, there can't be an effect. So you can be rid of the so-called karma. You can be rid of all this psychological suffering if you're not attaching to it. We attach to it, take it on board, fixate on it, and it's seemingly real. And they tell you in all the scriptures, detach, leave it as it is, let it be, just be as you are. You are not unaware right now. What's there first? Is there anything you can think of, or say, or mention, or know, if that awareness wasn't suffusing that pattern you call the body, the life essence? So work it out for yourself. This person you believe yourself to be is transient, it's constantly changed. Wei Wu told you that a couple of centuries ago when he was around. He says, why are you unhappy? Because everything you say, everything you think, and everything you do is for yourself. And he says there isn't one. The personal self, the ego, is a fiction. There's no such thing as an ego. And somebody else told you that. He says, ego's when I go. And that's pretty true if you look at it. When you see that the size of fiction, the ego can't be there. So we got this concept, and take it to be real and fixate on it. See what happens. Something comes up and you like it. Not realising that it's transient, everything is constantly changing. This thing comes up, you like it. And we don't want the good things to go, we want to keep them there. Not realising that they are transient, no matter how much you love it, no matter how much you keep it, you want to keep it there, it's going to go. It's going to change. We don't want it to go, so what do? We resist it from going, trying to keep it there. We resist it. Don't you recognise and realise that resistance is conflict? If you're resisting something, you're at war with it, you're in conflict with it. And conflict makes you uneasy. Disease is an uneasiness. So there's resistance, conflict and disease going on in that body all the time. Something comes up and you don't like it. Oh, I shouldn't be thinking that. That's a terrible thought. I don't want to think that one. And you try to push that one out also. Resist it. Again, resistance, conflict and disease. That goes on because of the thinking and the belief that we are this separate entity. No wonder you're fearful, no wonder you're anxious, no wonder you're depressed and unhappy and guilty, because of this constant conflict. If you're not relating to the believed in me or anything, or the person, what's wrong with right now? If you don't think about it, you pause the thought, there's no thought there, can you say it's good? Can you say it's bad? Can you say it's pleasant, painful, unhappy? It's just as it is. And what is means it's unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. Everything is left as it is. And it can actually do what it's doing anyway. Transient, it'll change. It'll change and constantly change. So that's what we point out, that you can be free of this believed in entity, me, this person. The great perfection is non-conceptual or unfixated awareness. Test it out, see it for yourself. And that's the acid test to anything. Does it work? And I can tell you for a fact here that the believed in separate entity, the individual, the person, is a total fiction. It doesn't exist. It's turned this life around, what I believe to be. And there's a lot of well-being. It doesn't stop it from aging, doesn't stop it from thinking, from coming up. But the old scriptural saying is, know the truth, and the truth will set you free. What are you free from? You're free from the belief you are this person. Free from belief. And that's our problem. We believe this, we believe that, and a belief is not the actual. Look in your dictionary, look up the definition of belief. An unquestioned acceptance of something in the absence of reason means we haven't reasoned it out or worked it out in the mind. We haven't even questioned it. We've taken it to be real when our parents told us, little Johnny, you are this person. An unquestioned acceptance of what was it?
Something in the absence of reason.
Acceptance of a question.
Alleged fact. Without positive
Acceptance of an alleged fact without positive knowledge or proof. So put your beliefs to that test and see if they work out. Anyway, that's enough for this. So, Kat, I'll tell you all what about the questioning and all the rest of it. And there's some of you here that know this already, and you can tell us how it is, and somebody might word it in a different way to what I do and enable somebody else to recognise it. Some of you might have doubts or questions. Anyway, so get into it. Away you go.
Can put your ears now. And I just say welcome to everyone who is watching with us online. And we got no questions. We get a lot of good morning messages and warm messages and love to everyone from our online community, but no questions. So that means that the mic goes to you, goes to the room, and we encourage everyone to just even repeat out loud what you heard from Bob, just even to put that in your own words. Just that vibration that will penetrate your own body, and it will let everyone else hear it again. That may be that's just that straw that breaks the camel back. You never know, because we all know that we are. But we also know a lot of other things that are secondary and unimportant, and they feel that they are important. But really, the main thing is that we are. The main thing is the awareness of presence, and the rest is just passing phenomena. So, is there anything that anyone would like to, or perhaps ask question, or perhaps maybe elaborate on some of the points? Joseph, did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I don't know what you said. Yeah, I was listening, then in the end forgot what the words of Bob were, but the thought came up of I'm not the me, or I'm not the I, and to detach from that belief. And when I remember, I speak to my mother quite often. We might talk about someone else's pattern, or I hear someone else's story, and then I can be always easily the observer because I'm not emotionally detached to that topic, and then I can see everything, the pattern. And then if it's about myself, then I believe I'm the I, and then I attach to the pattern. And so what I understood from there, being the observer of my pattern, could then actually detach myself from the pattern and actually see what the I or belief is doing or suffering, so that I understood, or that what resonating with me. I hope that will I look at that a bit more further when I do it, or when the pattern is doing it, then just to become the observer what I'm actually doing, or what the I believe is trying to, or it's doing. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's a brilliant point, Joseph. And actually, the way you realize it, when you listen or you hear somebody else's story, is impersonal. And why would you not be able to see someone else like Joseph's story in the same way? Because if you do, the heaviness of the story goes away. You're watching a character in the on Netflix or something, and it doesn't, even though you will have responses, when someone is being chased, we have this mirror neurons and you will be responding to it, but it's not personal. And being able to see the same body, your body, as not yours, as just another body with a set of habits. You don't know your next thought, you don't know your next action, you don't know your next behavior. And if you can watch it with that detached observing, like being the field of consciousness, curious about how is that next response going to show up, how is it going to play out. Without, we usually tend to attach and have that sort of a perfectionist attitude that, no, this is wrong, I shouldn't be thinking that, I shouldn't be doing that. There's no choice of how this body is going to respond or think. And if you can really see it this way, isn't it a great relief and a great pleasure to actually be able to watch the happening in that childlike, curious, unattached way?
Yeah, so it's interesting when I speak to my mother quite often and look at my patterns or what's around me. We sometimes talk for 3 hours or more, and then I always easily get that observing position, and then everything is sort of taking off. The attachment or the emotions, and then after a day or so, then the need come up again, or whatever is creating that pattern, and the belief of like not being the observer is coming back, and so it's just a constantly changing. And also I notice where I talk about others makes me detach, which is actually not what I maybe should focus on, or what it's putting me back to that observer position, which is always great because you're always detached, and it sometimes may help others. I'm not sure if you have the conversation, but it doesn't help my patterns and my belief again. So it's also a pattern as well to actually focus on others rather than on yourself, because I don't want to not look at it. So it's also interesting to see that pattern as well.
Beautiful. And it is, I just highlight that because sometimes people get confused that Advaita is all about so-called dissociative disorder, where you can take some drugs and you can get completely disassociated and psychopathic. This is totally not what it is. That way of shifting perception doesn't make the body less involved in whatever is happening in its responses, doesn't make emotions less prominent when they are being experienced. It's just the personal aspect of it. The translation to the me, that one gets loosened up, shaken up. Doesn't mean it doesn't show up. It may still show up, but the belief in that is much lighter. So the life is generally lighter. The sense of, this associative disorder creates psychopaths who are heartlessly harming others. Advaita doesn't do that. Realizing that the body is already preconditioned, and having taken away the idea of me from the equation, like Bob often says, me is the one who needs self-gratification. Me is the one who is pushed and urged to take away from others, to hurt others, just so it is for me. When there is no me, there is no need for self-gratification. So the chance for the right behavior, right action, right response, right in a way of loving kindness is far, far greater. What you say is beautiful. I just kind of want to cover up that criticism that often comes about Advaita being about disassociation. No, it is about questioning the validity of that self-reference.
Yeah, it's also when there is emotion which is sort of happy and sort of that sort of positive, positive emotion, then the ego wants to climb. Yeah, that's because of me, because I'm like this, and when then the negative comes, I want to walk away from it, and then I'm very active in doing things, and then I realize, I'm actually can't hold that emotion. I run away from that emotion and doing activities and I can't sit still and actually just leave it as it is, basically, and then some points when I have to look at it, maybe a tear come up, and then I realize, oh, actually I walked away from it, which I lightly realized as well. So, but that's also because of the belief again.
Yeah.
Because
Be the observing, Joseph, not the observer.
Mm.
The observer is the conceptual image movement, but the fact is that there is observing going on, just the same as seeing, hearing, thinking. Then you bring in I think, you brought in the subject, the thinker, but there's thinking and observing. The observer becomes the subject, divided. But if there's observing, seeing, hearing, tasting, the ing is something that's happening spontaneously in the moment. I see, I hear, and I hear when you've separated straight away.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, because it's always present. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's it. Oops.
Hey Bob, wanted to see you for a while, so I'm really, really pleased to be here. You got to tell this really slowly because I'm completely stupid. I've been looking at this from every angle and I just don't seem to get it all. I don't know, I think there's something fundamentally that I'm doing wrong, or I don't know, I'm just getting hung up on something and I don't know what it is, and it's just kind of frustrating. Hence I'm here, see you. If I can't seem to get beyond the observing, I can feel things coming up. Things just appear in whatever way. If I want to just go through, trace the senses back, if I want to see where thoughts are coming from, they come from nowhere. There's nowhere I can see what they're coming from or whatever. Yet there's still the separate seeing of this, and I can't sort of be. If I think about it, there's no reason for there to be a separation in anything. I can't see, if I can't reason where anything is separate, there is nothing but that. But there's still the observation that means that there's something separate from what's being looking. And I don't know how I should do it, like if there's some other inquiry or to sit with it some other way, or I don't know, and any guidance you can give would be good.
Well, just drop the I that's trying to do it. You say you're still seeing, you're still there. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I don't think I must be, but I don't think I'm trying to identify with it. But it's just there. It's always a point of view. It's always, generally for me, it's always a kind of a vision thing, whether my eyes are open or shut. It's a seeing from a point of view, and I just don't seem to be able to drop that. Or the other thing is I have the other thing that really annoys me is I just have this constant narration of everything on top of it, and then people say, oh, try to see in the gaps or something like that, between the gaps of thoughts. Mine just seem to overlap. There doesn't seem to be a gap anywhere. It's just a stream of verbal diarrhea just going through my head all the time. And again, that seems to be the separate thing from nothing I can find. I don't know. Sorry.
Well, there is nothing to find. You are, as Nisargadatta says, you try to grasp it with a concept, and you fail.
Yeah.
He says we're bound to fail because it's non-conceptual awareness. That awareness without putting the concepts on it. You can't negate your beingness. You can't say I am not. But what you are, you can't say either because it'll be a concept.
Yes, but when I do anything, if I, like I said, if I try to sense into it, or if I actually, logically think about it, or I sometimes forget about it and it's just there, I can't see any reason for the separation that I'm experiencing. And I don't understand that.
Why you can't, as I say, why you can't see it, because there is no separation.
Yes, but
But the perception.
I seem to perceive that, and I seem to be making that, or it seems to be happening for no other reason than I feel that it shouldn't be there, and I don't know why that is, or if there's some other way I could try to look at this, or some other way I should try to sense into this, or I don't know. I just any hints, tips, suggestions would be, like I said, greatly received.
I would like to say just this. Bob sometimes calls it a natural state. And natural state means as in nature. If you think of the tree, it feels the wind different than the tree that doesn't feel the wind. If you see those two cats, they also see from the particular set of eyes. The perception is always directional. The sense of location in space is necessary for the whole functioning in nature. That will never go away. We had a man here who was studying ancient texts, and he was convinced that nobody, Bob has absolutely no clue about so-called enlightenment, because he can go through the door and doesn't bump to the wall. So he obviously has the sense of location of the body. He expected that suddenly his brain will stop working, his eyes will stop working, and he will be immersed in the homogeneous blob where he can't hear directionally, when he can't see. We can't, our people were asking questions sometimes, why don't I see the snow in New York? That is the mechanism of the body. What is inseparable is the life of my life, Bob's life, tree's life, that one energy, like the energy in the globes is the one electricity. But from that globe, it directs this way. From that one, it directs this way. That will never ever change. That's why they say that seeing through changes everything. At the same time, it changes nothing, because it is already so. If it is already so, and if you are already seeing from that angle, I'm seeing from that angle, it means 20 years, 30 years ago, it was already so. The self was already imagined. So if the self is not imagined, seeing happens just the same way. The subtle expectation that something should happen within the vision, and they sometimes, like Course in Miracles calls it a vision, that the vision makes you overlook the separation. It doesn't mean that bodies will not appear separate, but we know this is an appearance. Like in the dream, you dream at night and their bodies separated by space and their objects separated by space. But then the dream collapses and you realize there was no separation. That was just one image coming up. And this one also appears separate. But in essence, and that's the knowing the truth, it is all vibration. That vibrates into the body, that vibrates into the sound, that vibrates into the photons of light, and is translated by this machinery here, the computer. That is all what is inseparable. And for the cats, it's the same. For dogs, trees, natural state. Sometimes that word enlightenment or clarity or awakening creates so much confusion. And it did for me. When I was chasing enlightenment, I wanted to be high, all the time high, ecstatic, blissful. There was nothing less than constant pleasure. And of course, that's the dream so-called ego would like to have, because that mechanism is ego. There is no ego. It's just an identification with that narrative. That identity of the narrative, its job is to find more pleasure and avoid pain. So that one amplified to impossibility imagines enlightenment as constant high ecstasy, orgasm, whatever. But that's just blah blah thinking, just the program out of control. When you see it as a software, yeah, you laugh. So of course, yeah, it chases pleasure. Cats, Shakti is feeding cats. They chase every piece of food. They love it. Pleasure. That's how the machinery works. But they don't have a narrative. So when the stomach is full, they stop. And we do have the narrative, which is designed to always want more. But the simplicity of it is, as Bob says, you are already that. We all already know that we are. There's some other things that we know that could be discarded. That like this man who used to come here, and he knew that if he attains the vision, the world will completely disappear. Well, it will, in the moment of physical death, or deep sleep with no dreams. But right now, if the experience is seeing or hearing from the particular direction, that's it. That's it, because this is it, and it's already so. It's just that the thought that it should be different, that this moment is not as it should be, it's not perfect, it should somehow, the becoming, it should be, I should become more, I don't know, enlightened or have more pleasure in this moment. No, that's it. It's nothing really else to it.
Takes all opinions to make a world, a universe, and that critic voice of the critic in you is equally an opinion as anything else. Right? You just have to include it in. That's all. That's God as well, isn't it? God critiquing, in the sense that that's about all it's.
Yeah, I know. We're all sort of tempted to say, what do I need to do to get what I want, to have the understanding that I've got. I try this, I try that, but I haven't quite got it, and probably what I need is a bit more direction here. But there's a trier behind all that. There's a something that's trying, and they're trying to do. And that trying to do is just strengthening that which you really need to understand isn't there. There isn't anybody there. There isn't anybody to do anything.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so yet it still tries to do. Yeah, and it's like it, and that's painful stuff. I mean, my God, who hasn't been through that stuff? Hard searching, and if the search is seen to be a sort of a sham, a sort of a false direction, something that you can say, my God, there was nothing to search for. That was just a total misconception of all of this stuff. There is nothing to look for. It already is. Then you drop that search. You don't need to look for anything. There's nothing to do. There's no way to get anything, and there's nothing to get. That's all.
Beautiful.
No one to get it.
No one to get it. Yes, I have a couple of. Oh, did you want to speak, George? Because I have a couple of comments online. But if you want to.
I don't have anything in
go on.
particular to
You don't? Okay.
say. No.
Okay, I'll read the comments then. Giotti says, what are some of the tests others have done to question this belief of individual entityness? What are the other tests, darling? Tests to question that individual entityness.
Who's it happening to?
Yeah.
Well, obviously it's happening to me.
Mm.
What's me? A thought, a concept. What are they talking about? Non-conceptual awareness.
Yeah.
What's wrong with right now if I don't think about it?
Mm. Am I unaware?
Am I unaware right now? Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually too many things that we know and focus on. If you only focus simply of the awareness of presence and discard other stuff, oh, but I'm not this, I'm not there yet, I don't get that, just discard the other stuff and just be with that what is certain. Because those other concepts are just ideas coming up from social conditioning, from the imagination that there is something better, bigger, more. But that's a good question. Thank you for bringing it up. And that is, Yale says, the more you try to get rid of the separation, the more it will persist. Don't try anything. Just let it be as it is. The source knows what to do, how and when. Patience is key. Everything is perfect as it is in every moment. Beautiful, Yale. And she probably said it just before Cole said it, so we had it twice. That's the key. That really is the key. Relaxation. Bob always says it is the matter of simple recognition. It is already fully present, shining forth, can't be overlooked if you look. It is a recognition and relaxation back out of the mental noise into that certainty of presence, of being. It's nothing needs to be done. It's just what Cole and Neil said, is just to stop the distraction really and recognize what's already present. And Vivek says, he himself answered, stay, be still in between thoughts. Yes, you said it, Adam, but and you're right. You know, the idea of focusing in the gaps. Gaps don't belong to the stream of narrative. So it may not be that obvious. It may not be easy. It may not work. So thank you, Vivek, for bringing it up, but it's kind of doesn't really, not every pointer sits well with everyone. That's why there is so many of them. And Jyoti says, in the dream we have no choice, but in reality there appears to be a choice. That's quite confusing. Yeah, that's a very good point, Jyoti. Yes, there appears to be a choice. But really, if you look at the way the choice appears to be there, like let's say we're going to go for lunch after that, and we appear to have a choice what to pick from the menu. But is it really a choice? Because this choice has been influenced by all our lifelong experiences, our current medical issues that we have to take into consideration, upbringing, school, society, everything. So it appears as it is Bob's choice or my choice, but it is really the whole universe has to be included in that choice.
Choices are made, but there's no choice maker.
Yeah. Or you can say the totality makes a choice through this, but everything's included. And Enki says, I'm just here to enjoy the ride. Brilliant point. Yes, enjoy the ride. And that's... Did you want to say something, Julie?
No, I was thinking a little earlier about what you were talking about, like the response is not a choice as well. And that's something I've talked to people about this. I find it incredibly liberating just to think about I know it's a thought, but still just to explore, wait a minute, no, not even the response, you know, not even the response am I responsible for. There's still an ability to respond, but there's no responsibility. So you have responsibility, but no responsibility.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I find that to be absolutely game-changing, because I have talked to people about this, that, yeah, but I choose my response. Do you? I mean, doesn't that come about, your responses, because maybe how you're feeling that day, or maybe somebody said something to you before, or maybe you didn't sleep enough, or maybe your program, I don't know. And so, if I could see I didn't choose my response, you know, what I'm saying right now, I couldn't do anything other than this. I can't be anything other than this, and nobody else can either. So, when I think about situations, or more specifically, it's usually not the situation, it's people that can trigger even more than the situation. So like a hurricane can rip the roof off of my house, but if it was somebody who did it intentionally and burnt my house down, that would piss me off a lot more, right? But if I can see that, well, you know, it's still going to suck probably that a hurricane ripped the roof off of my house, you know, but then again, does it suck without a thought? But if I could see that, the person who ripped the roof off my house, where I'm saying did that, actually they didn't do it. Well, where goes the? There's no, huh?
American foreign policy ends there.
American foreign policy? Oh. Trump is being the best Trump he knows how to be, and so is Biden. So, I can go there. I can think about American policy and wow, it's not just the foreign policy, it's like the policy within our country. I'm like, it's frightening sometimes. Why is it out of 380 million Americans, the best they could have done were Trump, Biden, Hillary? But there's no they doing anything.
They are being influenced too.
Yes, they are. So, and they can't do anything other than what they're doing. So, with that in mind, I know that's a thought too, but at the same time, this thought really is, it's so soothing or relieving because it's a thought that can point out the bullshit of all the other thoughts. So, including this one. Yeah, it's I had my own little bit of drama happen within the last month, and as it was all unfolding, and I'm in the courtroom or in the, it's so tempting to go into a story. I'm being cross-examined by one of the biggest badass lawyers in the whole United States, in fact, the world for this matter. Wow. That's quite a juicy story, like that interpretation. But even then I was able to just go, because the emotions would come up sometimes and they would arise, and then I go, there's a decision that has to be made, and this shouldn't be, but at the same time, it's just so, it's wonderful to be able to just sit back and
cruise through everything.
Yeah.
Just like, who was it? Enki says, I'm just here to enjoy the ride. And that's the ultimate freedom, to be free no matter what. Because life will be throwing challenges. The body will be breaking down, aging, or will be malfunctioning here and there. That's challenge. And of course, environment constantly changing, challenges from people, situations. And being free is being free to allow those things to just go through without shaking that boat too much. Of course, there will be a shake to the body-mind, but not the shake that will kind of collapse the boat.
Yeah, no, if this was 15 years ago or 20 years ago, I think I might have been a basket case over that. A lot more upset. I can't claim that, that no thought goes to moments other than, that no thought happens. It happens. But I know that at the same time it's just happening. There's nobody. Yeah, it's very beautiful. Anyway.
Yeah, the idea that thoughts should stop, that's another misconception that is quite popular in people seeking for the relief of that turmoil coming from thoughts. It doesn't really matter. The freedom means whether thought is there or thought is not there. There is a center of that, whatever, the peaceful center of the hurricane. No matter what's happening, the thought, if you know that thought is just a thought, and it's not the reality, it's not the truth, it's not the real, like Bob often says, try to drink the word water. Doesn't quench your thirst. And the thought, I'm hopeless, that's just a thought. Or the thought, they shouldn't have done it to me, that's just a thought. But when that thought somehow is charged with emotion, related to the imagined self, and becomes personal, it becomes really heavy. It can cause a lot of suffering. But when it is known for what it is, the thought, doesn't matter whether it is there or not. And the freedom is when it really doesn't matter. Don't have to wait for the thought to stop. I actually really love when we sometimes sit in silence or have a cup of tea and I see that Bob gets just a little hint of some thought passing through and I capture it and I say, darling, what are you thinking about? And there is a piece of a memory maybe just showing up a little bit. Sweet, like a fresh breeze. Oh, how nice. Or perhaps an old song that he remembers. Oh, how sweet. This is a brilliant entertainment system, and there's nothing wrong to have it operational, have it functional. I mean, there is everything that is happening is pure perfection. So the fact that we have so-called narrative going on and commenting, it has its uses. It is there for a reason also. But when it overgrows like a fungi and eats the body from inside out, well, of course, that causes suffering and is unnecessary. But when Bob sometimes used that saying, you use the mind rather than the mind using you. And of course, when I say you, it doesn't mean you, the entity, because there is no entity. But you, the life, utilizes the mind just the way that you, the life, utilizes the eye. And you see everything. And then the capacity for thinking, capacity for planning is a wonderful capacity. Losing that capacity is not something to celebrate. And if it is, like people do actually get drunk or get Alzheimer's disease, there is really nothing to look forward to. Having the mind obedient to life, having the mind being functional and functioning when it is required, that is the invitation. To understand that it is mind, it is a software, it functions, and using the functioning rather than letting it overgrow like a virus and it's just
Yeah, when you said about that mind, then to me it just comes up the responsibility, like it says in a way, because you said, well, thinking is happening, whether you're responsible or not, I can't really say, but then to climb the me or the suffering into it is actually my responsibility. Well, in fact, you're responsible for everything. And then I don't know, sometimes I feel like when I'm climbing the responsibility on certain things, then it looks like, oh, I have a choice. Yeah. And then I think then when you have suffering, then you can look at, oh, I'm the only one can go out of it if I suffer or anything. It's only me doing like me. So then I think that's the first thing to look at. For me, would be the first thing to look at. Oh, I'm climbing that me, what I'm suffering, who I'm the only one who can actually make a difference, or what to me is. So yeah, that's what came up there when you said it, like responsibility of.
Just leads spontaneously. Natural responses. Without trying to work it out in the mind.
And not in a way, this is my fault. Because that's what Julia was pointing at. As life, you can say, yes, every thought, every action is happening within you. So you are expressing as those choices and you are responsible for everything that's happening. Like in the dream, when the dream appears, it appears within that mental space. And when it collapses to mental space. Every single object or subject or person in that dream is within you. So you as the consciousness, the whole world is within you. So you are responsible for the whole world, for the Second World War, for the Holocaust, for everybody else's thinking, as life. But as individual, You can't be responsible because individual is imagined. But that individual imagined, when there is no image of individual, as Bob says, the responses are still coming. And I didn't miss a day at work since I started working, ever, before and after so-called seeing through. So there is certain preconditioned behaviors in the body which are constantly updating. And those will exercise the actions. And you could blame those together with the whole environment, inseparable. The conditioning of the body, conditioning of the environment, coming together creates the response. And those are directly responsible for every response. But those are the whole universe. But there is an individual in the narrative which is designed, who is designed to take credit. So this is my fault, this is my credit, I did it, I didn't do it, I should have done it. This is the program, this is how it works. To make that, to seal that imagined self and to identify with that imagined self. It takes credit for everything and it calls it responsibility. If you want to be a responsible citizen, you take responsibility for every action, and this is a great sort of a social tool for having functioning big group of people. And it is in the conventional world and language. Yes, if you have a car accident and you get into a stress and you run, you'll go to jail. Even though the stress response wasn't your choice, it was pre-programmed. The fact that you ran wasn't a decision, it was the stress response. You still go to jail.
Yeah.
Yes? Bob wanted to.
Well, Nisargadatta says nothing can trouble you except your own imagination. Nothing. And you was bringing up imagination and that too. What you image in. We're creating these conceptual or mental images all the time. Take them to be real and responding to them, and acting on them, or what do we do? That's the only trouble you'll ever have.
And yeah, that's what I actually meant. Being responsible, what Bob just said, like, what he just said. Yeah, so that we are responsible for that.
Yeah.
What we bring to trouble.
Responsible.
Yeah. Response. Yeah, that's what I meant actually.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, I was thinking a lot about what you were saying. Sorry, didn't catch your name again. Adam, yeah, about not knowing, and it, something that shows up a lot in my life as well, that thought, like, I don't know, and
Speak up.
oh, sorry, the thought that I don't know, and it can be anxiety causing, and I also heard like a desire for freedom, and I related to that from just like not wanting constant thoughts and not wanting feelings that are unpleasant. This is my projection of my understanding and things. And yeah, the only things that I thought of, which still don't make much sense to me anyway, were like there's obviously a knowing that you don't know, and so there is some kind of knowing there, and I just started thinking about my foot for some reason. Like, I don't know exactly how it works, like I don't know all the muscles in there, how everything works in there, but my foot doesn't disappear, which doesn't make sense, but that's how I'm sort of trying to process it. I don't know everything about my being and the being and life and or the universe. Doesn't just disappear. It'll disappear when it wants to, because everything changes. But yeah, that sort of helped me to be with it, be throughout not knowing, and the things that I do know and the things that I don't know. I don't disappear if I don't know things. Like, I was a baby and I didn't know anything and just kept breathing, and now I know a certain amount of things. So I think it sort of came back to being when you're feeling that, and you sort of want that space from thoughts and feelings. They exist just as much as, like, not knowing exists just as much as knowing, if that makes any sense. It has an existence. So if you look at the existence of knowing and not knowing, actually the same thing. Because you have to know that you don't know. So, sorry. I feel like I'm botching this pretty badly. But does that twig at all? Or is it just kind of like gobbledygook?
So I think there's two things for me. One is I'd really just rather be rid of seeking. So I'd just be done with this. I don't care how that unfolds. But I don't seem to be able to let it go. And I do there seems to be things happening that really aren't in the best interests of me, because this is so driving. Just every decision for the last 4 years really has been the worst decision I could have made in hindsight. But this is what I had to do, and this is what happened. So that's it. So there's either that, which I would, it's obviously wanting whatever, or the other way is sort of I'm just trying to bullnose and push my way through it, just trying to figure it out or whatever, and I'm talking to anyone that will listen to me. Just trying to see if there's something I'm missing. There's just, if I think about it or whatever, it all seems so simple. There's nothing there, and that's it. But in the reality of right now, there is something else, or you guys, and I can't kind of reconcile that for some reason, or let it go.
But Adam, what are you seeking, mate? What are you seeking?
I don't know.
So what makes you think there's something to find?
Because everything else is just made up in my mind, and I know that, and it's all just garbage. And then I seem to be piling a whole pile of garbage on top of what is real or true, and I'd just like to see through that, or be without that in some way. And I have an instinct, a feeling from a couple of instances that is a possibility. That's all. So I guess that's what's caused that.
I would say that your search is over already. You've already seen it, haven't you? Haven't you seen the truth? The truth of yourself and the non-existent self?
Well, I would think so. Like, maybe logically it would seem so. But why am I still here? Why am I here today? This doesn't... There's plenty of other things I could be or wear, but I'm here. And that's the reality of it, and I don't really understand that. And I don't know why there's that drive, and I just can't let it go. I just find myself in these places, and I don't know why. And
Bob, did you want to come? Bob wanted to say something on that. Yeah.
Who wants to know? You don't know why you're still here. Who is it that wants to know?
I don't know. It's that point of something for me that generally is behind my eyes. It's that point of reference or something.
Well, look behind your eyes.
When I try to do that, it goes to nothing. But it's not a thing. It's nothing. There's just, it's a void. But
it's nothing.
But that is not.
That's nothing.
Yeah. So however I try to do that, like if I try to do it through my senses, feeling where the sensing of the senses is coming from, or where the thoughts are coming from, or where anything, it ends up in the same void, or same. I don't know if it's the same void. I don't know, but it's just nothing. There's just what would seem like a dead end. I can't go any further.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
But that is having. I don't know if this is just again misguided, and that's why I'm here, because I'm an idiot. That seems so incredibly significant that there should be. Why do I forget it all the time? And then I'm living on a pile of crap that I place on the beauty of everything at any moment. So that's probably the confusion.
Nisargadatta says we try to grasp it with a concept and we fail. And he says you're bound to fail because it's non-conceptual awareness. You can't grasp it with any thought, feeling or emotion.
But there is another aspect to it. I mean, that was Bob's case, and that was my case, and that was quite a few people that I spoke with. When the search was the singular focus, like nothing else mattered in life. That was just that longing for the truth, inextinguishable longing. And then there was a glimpses. Yeah, you look behind, there's a void. But there was no jumping into the void and killing that I. That I was still present, recreating yourself. So the sense of longing for the truth and the relief from that I, there was nothing else there. And both Bob and I, we've been in a situation that there was always two things important, you know, the marriage, the relationship, and the awakening. And then the marriage failed. And then we found ourselves in the presence of someone who would show the way when that half of the focus of the life failed, and there was just that singular one last desire. And I think Nisargadatta also mentioned about that one last desire for ultimate freedom and rest from that exhaustion of always wanting something else than what is, of finding the truth, or finding liberation, awakening, whatever the wording is there. That one singular desire. Boy, when I look from this moment now, how enjoyable, how much of love for the truth is locked into that last burst of seeking which proves that there is something so precious and so liberating to be found. It is already there, it's just being overlooked by the act of seeking. But in the act of seeking, there is such love for the truth. While it was there, we wanted it to disappear, to be done. We wanted the search to be over. But while it is there, it's not up to me when the search ends. It is up to life. So while it is the present reality, boy, enjoy it. Enjoy the longing for the truth. Enjoy the exhaustion of it. I also spoke with one person who actually, I think I even wrote that story in the book, who was totally ridden by resentment that her life fell apart because of the seeking pattern. She could pursue the music career, she could have family, children, but she couldn't because the urge for the truth, the love for the truth was so exhausting. She would just find herself seeking, reading books, listening to everyone. But when the clarity came, she realized, wow, there was a great perfection even in that. Because the fact that the seeking continues, it doesn't mean that anyone is missing anything or lacking anything. It's just being ignored. Like Bob says, we ignore the true nature because we focus into the thinking, into the ideas that there is something else to be found. But yes, if there is a void, and sometimes it might be necessary to just, okay, who is seeing? Oh, let it see, let the consciousness see moment to moment. Or focus whenever you remember on that void that is looking. There is a void looking, there's no me looking, it's emptiness looking, emptiness knowing, emptiness experiencing. And at some point, that pattern, that program of recreating the imagined self will ease off. Another thing that often goes with it is, yeah, but I still feel that there is a me here. Well, there isn't a me, it is a sense of presence. Sense of presence never goes away. That's the aliveness. Sense of presence will always be there, just like that directional seeing in the so-called beta state of brainwaves or whatever, in the waking dream. It will be always there. The sense of presence will be there. But the narrative telling you that, oh, this is me seeing, this is the image seeing, this is Katarina seeing, or this is the body, female, this or that, that narrative is not believed anymore. It may still be chatting or not, doesn't really matter, but it's not believed. The truth is seeing is happening. Presence, a being is happening. Being is shining forth. Seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, thinking, it is all happening. And the presence is there. But that's not me anymore. That's just presence, consciousness, awareness, whatever it is. You can call it me if you want to talk about it.
Pass me the mic, please. Sorry. Apologize. So now I know better what does it mean that the history repeats itself. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. I have a couple of comments from people who are with us online, and that is from Nat. Looking at nature and animals helps to see the natural state of life. Only human beings have the constant narrative going on in the mind and a feeling of separate identity. Instead of living in the mind, being with what is at the moment is the natural state. Beautifully put, absolutely. And British Julia says, when we truly see through time, it's game over. No cause or effect is possible. Me is a story and cannot exist in this immediacy. It's all apparently happening. Great point. Yes, like Bob was saying, there is no future, no past unless you think about it. And where is the story of me? Always contextualized in time. And Yale says, seeking can only stop when the source wills it to. You can't do anything to start or stop. You, quote unquote, didn't start the seeking. Just let it be as it is. It's all good, even if it looks like it is not. Absolutely. That's the ultimate point, you know. There's no you to start or stop anything. I think Josh wanted to say something.
Sorry, I had something, and could you read that comment again?
Yes, seeking can only stop when the source wills it to. You can't do anything to start or stop. There is no you, how could you? You didn't start the seeking. Just let it be as it is. It is all good, even if it looks like it is not. That's from Yale.
So I can't remember what I was going to say, but it was really good.
That was the best.
Yeah. There's something. The seeking itself is well, it's the problem, but it's also the solution. The feeling of the seeking. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's inextricably linked to that what is already. I don't know.
It is a love for the truth.
Yeah.
Another way for love for the truth to express itself.
Yeah, I can really relate to what you're saying, Adam, because I've had the same, and it's taken many, many years for me to find the gap between the thoughts. I've been on this path a long time, so it's been quite a while that I've been able to step into the gap between the thoughts. But one thing that really helped, like if you think about, imagine you had an old high school friend come to visit you, right? And you're kind of good mates, you know him quite well, haven't seen him for 20 years. He shows up, he sits on your couch, and like he just never stops talking. He just rabbits on and on and on, just about himself, never asks anything about you. It's just talk. And after a while, you're polite and you answer, but then you just get to the point where you're just sort of nodding and just, you know, you're wanting to watch a movie. There's a really good movie, you've paid for it until you're sitting watching it, and it just goes on and on and on, right? I mean, in the end, you're just going to nod and you're just going to, but you're going, you know, you're not going to invite him back, probably. And you're not even listening to what he's saying, right? It's just constant. It's just a constant stream. But you're not you're not even paying any attention. So I don't know whether that helps either, because there is you there. Like, you are aware of the stream of noise, and you're also, because you're aware of it, it can't be you. You can't be it and aware of it. So it's just like the friend on the couch. I don't know whether that helps at all.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's great. It's a yes. Yes, Bob is pointing at time, so yeah, but thank you, Michael. That's a great point. You know, some people have this narrative which is so more like an enemy than friend. But if you really listen to it, it kind of wants you back. It kind of wants to be helpful. It is a software which is part of the self-preservation of the body. So it's much more healthy to actually call it a friend. And if it's really boring and it's really over the top, then yes, just see it in this way. And what a wonderful, helpful idea to actually just, because you are aware of it, you can't be it, it is an object in the awareness. You are the consciousness, within you the chatting happens.
And saying, as a rule, a man's a fool. When it's hot, he wants it cool. When it's cool, he wants it hot. Never wanting what he's got, always wanting what is not. As a rule, a man's a fool.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.